about how I applied it. We talked a little bit about how I assessed it, but today we're going to take a really deep dive into this framework for flourishing that I created, and it's going to be an interactive 45 minutes where I'm going to ask you to share some ideas as a group, and then at the end of the 45 minutes, of the last part of it, we're going to actually develop a full cycle program plan related to the flourishing framework from conception to assessment. So let me try to share that screen. Awesome, there it is. Share, excellent. And then I'm going to go, I need to do, sorry about that, right here. Perfect. Okay, so does everyone see my first screen?
You're good to go.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And let me just make sure I have chat in the right place so I can see. So again, please feel free to interrupt me. I can't see everybody, so if you want to, let me minimize, I'll move this out of the way. Use chat, someone will see it, one of the moderators will see it if I don't see it, and we'll just get you, we'll try to get to all questions.
I'll keep an eye on it for you.
Today, I'm going to walk through my process of how I kind of came to this whole framework for flourishing. And then I'm going to ask you to reflect on those same questions that I asked myself. And so that will be, what is your aha moment? I talked yesterday a little bit about my aha moment. I also talked a little bit about events that I had already been developing or doing that related to flourishing. And then I talked a little bit about how I came to identify what I needed to measure with flourishing. So those are the three big questions I'm going to be asking you. And then we're going to bring it all together in a case study and in that applied program plan, that action plan. So the first thing, of course, is here we have, what is your aha moment? Again, mine was dealing with mental health issues with a student. Okay, I don't want to, why is it asking me? Sorry, I'm trying to, there we go. There's the link. And I'll go to that screen in a second. So your aha moment, mine was working with a student who was in a mental health crisis, but it was also when I was looking at the data of one of a random first year experience program, when I was noticing students were commenting more on the social emotional aspect of the program versus the actual learning, or what I thought were the actual learning objectives, which was the library scavenger hunt. So while you're adding in your aha moment, some things you might think about is some of the humanness of the work that we do, and also how do we keep student identity at the focus of our work, as I touched on those two concepts yesterday. You could also think about the successes that you had that were not easy to articulate or capture to other people because we don't have that professional tool yet in place to, talk about this concept of flourishing like we do with the framework for information literacy. So I'm going to let you guys take a few minutes, reflect on it, feel free to share. This won't go beyond this group. So if you want to have be anonymous, you can be anonymous. And then while you're talking, I want to also, and the link is in the chat, so I'm going to change the screen. So while you're adding those in, and before I go and look at what you've written, I want to review our working definitions, and I'm going to add these into the chat so you can look at them, because I know no one can read and write and type at the same time. So these are our working definitions for flourishing and flourishing with information. So it's the expression of purpose and potential that is civically minded and sustained over time and through virtuous and ethical actions and choices. And remembering that flourishing with information is that relationship with information and how that relationship shapes our identities and how our identities shape information, and that virtues and values and benefits of information extend not only to our academic lives, but to, students' social and civic lives. So those are some of the definitions that I want you to think about today. And then I have a mantra for us to keep in mind, and I'll put this in the chat as well. that our mantra is nurturing the student relationships with information is fundamental to academic librarianship, and that those relationships can lead to flourishing. So those are the key takeaways for from yesterday's presentation, and that we keep in mind today. So now I am going to jump out of the slideshow and go to my aha moment. Oh, that's okay. I'm just gonna, I get very emotional. I'm sorry, I'm looking up at a different screen, so you might see up my nose. So realize that people come back when they realize comfort and say, yes, yes, right? And then the question is, how do we talk about that or measure that? Because we don't necessarily talk about that or measure that. Having a student tell me they had decided to get an MLS because of our work together, yes. So that vocational awe is a very cool and powerful moment. When students just hang out near their librarians when they could be. Excellent. Students will bring non-library questions to libraries. Yes, that we are a source for all things right on campus. Mentoring student employees, coming to understand and appreciate them as junior colleagues, learning from them while also teaching them, watching them, and entering into the profession. Yes, excellent. And if you want to, having students know they can find whatever information they need at the library, right? That confidence building, yep. And that, so yesterday we touched briefly on library anxiety. So some of those comments relate to that library anxiety for sure. So now I am going to, and feel free to keep sharing. This will be a live Padlet during this presentation. We may want to come back to these Padlets later when we're doing the case study and the program plan. So you may want to, so keep these Padlets open on your end. Okay, so back to the mantra again, that is in the chat for us to think about. And this is kind of my driving force. So this is what I keep in my my mind when with planning. So now I've updated, I had this information in a different format yesterday, and I did quite a bit of editing last night after the presentation. And I wanted to, I'm gonna scoot back a little bit because I have a huge screen. So here I have, I wanted to show you kind of it all put together. So I have the event, I have the description, I have the frame that I identified from the three, I have the examples of knowledge practices and dispositions to show you how I was linking that. And then I have some data from the outcomes, like what I found to be valuable or important. So again, these are all events that are typically geared towards first year students, transfer students, undergraduate students for sure, though some, I never turn a student away if they're a graduate student. We are a 4-year PhD degree granting institution, so we have students of all degree levels. So I don't turn students away, but I do develop them with an undergraduate in mind. And then also if you're thinking about, so for like international students, transfer students, graduate students, all are welcome. So a few that I want to, so notice like, for example, 3D&D, right? That's the 3D Dungeons and Dragons, where I identified belonging, confidence, and connectedness. Oh, you see all those. And then so the example of the knowledge practices here are actually for belonging, not for confidence or connectedness. I guess I had them bolded, but I guess that bold did not transfer, so I apologize. So these are just examples where even though I did identify several different knowledge practices and dispositions from each of the frames, but only chose a few just for your example. And then in the outcomes, I just wanted to show you an example of what that looked like, so that complete full cycle programming planning. So formal HSIRB, assessment, and then 20 to 26% of students agreed or strongly agreed. that they learned something new, that they felt more confident, had a stronger sense of belonging. 41% that they were interested in meeting people. 31% said engaging and informative. This was an extremely popular event. And then I also put in a note that this spurred collaboration with the student organization called the Makerspace. And we scheduled 2 workshops that they co-hosted to teach students about what's the 3D modeling program? AutoCAD. So they led an AutoCAD program, and this was a brand new student organization, and they were using this as a launch pad to recruit new students. So it was really just a really great example of how one event spurred even more engagement at the student organization level. And I know that engagement is a huge part of this, and I think one thing that I need to state again and again is that this data and the way we talk about flourishing and this approach to programming and developing programs helps us engage with other people on campus because we have a very clear way to articulate it. We have numbers, we have data that is meaningful not only to us, but also to them, because in the end, all universities are concerned about student retention, time to degree, and student success is a part of that, and all of this is about student success. So this resonates very strongly with my university's strategic planning, and then also my university's library's strategic plan, where we have flourishing built into the strategic plan now. Maybe not in that term, but student success or thriving or some variation of that term. So I just want to reiterate that this assessment piece and the way that we talk about the outcomes and the student practices can really help us, maybe get more money. I don't know. I did not add my budget in. I had a budget of about $4,000 last year for all these programs. And this is the majority of them, but not all of them are listed here. So I'm going to do a time check, put my phone up, 9:18. Okay, great. So the next question I have for you, and please feel free to enter any questions into the chat if you need me to slow down. So flourishing in practice. Yesterday I talked about, after my aha moments, I talked about some of those programs where I was like, oh, I'm already doing this. So what is it? What else am I doing? What else can I do? So I would love to hear from you if after yesterday's presentation and today, have you identified any programs that you're like, oh, I'm already doing this? And I would love for you to share those with everybody, because again, we'll be able to reuse this information later after the case study and when we apply it to a program plan. And it would be great to share what everyone's doing. So I'll give you all a few minutes again to enter in your information, and I'm going to end the slideshow. I'm going to go to the flourishing in practice. So so here's the flourishing in practice. So I've divided it up into confidence, belonging, and connectedness. But if you don't know which is which, or you have a program where you're like, oh, this matches, but I don't know where, you can come down here to the corner and start a new thread if you would like. I just would love to see if we could capture some ideas. So mine was the first year experience program, where they were doing the scavenger hunt, and all the students were talking about making friends and hanging out. And that was just such a novelty to me that it just never occurred to me that that would be something that would be valuable to them. I'm going to slow down for just a sec, because I feel like I had something else to say and I've already forgotten what it is. So using a planner or joining planner, pals to help get organized and learn valuable skills. Tea time conversation starters. Oh, I want to hear about that. Oh, yeah, puzzles. Yeah. Does anyone do therapy dogs? I'm gonna put therapy dogs. This was like one of the easiest programs that I was able to start. We have a program on campus that is run by a faculty member, and she trains therapy dogs. So we are able to connect with them, and they come to our library quite a bit, probably 4 or 5 times a semester. And the first time they came, we have a rotunda that you walk into, and it's just this big entryway. We could not get the dogs out of the rotunda because they were swarmed by the students, and the students were like lying on the floors. They were just like cuddling with the dogs. It was the most amazing experience ever. And fortunately for us, it was free because we were able to, work with a campus partner. I'd be happy to talk to you about our experience with therapy dogs later. If you're interested, you could always email me. Yeah, orientation. So, right, what we like, right? Like that's like, how do we break that barrier of fear? Yeah, orientations is a huge part of this. Yes, office more welcoming. Yes, yep. Signs, maybe the strategic alliances on the door. Candy, right? Excellent. Yes, food, feed the students. Open houses, yep. Yep, excellent. Awesome, thank you. And feel free to keep going back and adding if you want. But I still don't remember what I was going to say to you all. Oh, student-led programming's right. Yeah, that's a huge piece because they want to, representation matters. They want to be with someone like them. Oh, that's sweet. We do a whiteboard sticky note activity. I'm typing it in, where we ask students to say, what do you miss most? Or I don't even think it's that negative. I was gonna say, what do you miss most about home? But I think that's too negative. It's more like, what do you like? What are you most looking forward to going home for a break or something? So and there's just this random thing where they just put sticky notes and comments. It's like, has nothing to do with anything, but it lets them articulate who they are, right? That identity, that student identity forward component, but also connecting with other students as well. Puzzles. Does anyone do crafting? Or I had an intern, and she was determined that I do a collaging event. And I was like, no one is gonna come to collaging. This was when I was very new at engagement. And it was one of the most popular events I've ever done. It was so well attended. So now I'm like, my attitude is try anything because I don't know. So yeah, so crafting, yep, crafting, yes, excellent. Oh, legal, oh, who's got, yep. So, yep. Okay, so, oh, Galentine's Day, I was thinking about doing that. Awesome. Well, feel free to keep adding on. We'll move forward because I don't want to run out of too much time. So it's really a reflective practice today, is just your chance to really think about what you're doing in your work, so that in practice, but also the aspirational. What is it that you want to do, like that? So we can share some of those ideas as well. So I'm going to move on I'm going to share my slideshow. So the next piece of all of this is assessment. So I talked a little bit about assessment yesterday. Yes, sorry, there's a question. Yes, so all of these Padlets will be available. I took down the Flourishing one, and I'm going to actually post them on my LibGuide for a period of time, and I'll make sure that they are all anonymous, so you'll be able to see all of this information later. Yep, good question. So on this page, I wanted to show you a few examples of all of the different instruments that I looked at when thinking about assessment. Like I mentioned yesterday, there are so many models of assessment, of flourishing, and a lot of them have companion assessments or tools, or that other researchers have developed tools for a specific model of flourishing. So here I have the Harvard Scale for Flourishing, the Social Provision Scale, the Mental Health Continuum short form, the Utrecht Work Engagement Scale for students. That one was a pain in the butt to find. I found it. And then, of course, the ACRL project outcome for academic libraries. And I picked a few of the questions that they have and how they actually structured their assessment. So for example, the Harvard scale, there are 6 domains. And the domains that I was most interested in were domain 3 and domain 4, and specifically questions 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I took those to help shape my assessment questions. The social provision scale has different areas, different aspects: guidance, reassurance of worth, social integration, attachment, nurturance, and reliable alliance. And the questions that I were interested in were questions 1, 8, 17, and 20. With the mental health continuum short form, emotional well-being, social well-being, and psychological well-being. And then again, those unnumbered questions there. And notice that these are all, most of them are LIRT scale questions. They're all self-reporting, and students just choose between strongly agree, agree, neither, whatever scale they choose. And then the Utrecht Work Engagement Scale, they look at vigor, dedication, and absorption. So again, it's really interesting to see how different people measure flourishing and what it is that they're looking for and what they value. They're all very similar, but they're just tweaked very slightly. And the project outcome for academic libraries has one question specifically related to confidence, which is question number 2, and that is also, there are 4 questions in project outcome. I don't know if anyone uses those. There are 4 Likert scale questions and then 2 open-ended scale questions. So these were some, and then you can find the links to all of these tools on the Flourishing LibGuide. There is a tab there where I've linked to all of the assessment tools, so you can just look at them at your leisure later on. But I wanted to give you a sense of what it was that I was looking for. So after consulting all these models, I decided that a self-reporting Likert scale model was going to be the best one. Why try something new or different? And then I decided that I wanted the students to report on 3 key questions, but they're really 6 questions because I have 3 questions related to the library and then 3 questions related to campus. So the 3 questions are, because of library programming, I feel more confident about using the libraries or more confident about using the campus. Or because of library programming, I feel more connected to people and resources in the libraries. And then the other question would be more connected to people and resources on campus. Because of library programming, I feel like I belong in the library, or I feel like I belong on campus. I really wanted to distinguish between the library and campus and there is actually a slight variation, and I'll show that to you in just a minute. So the 5-point Likert scale that I chose is strongly disagree, disagree, neither, agree, and strongly agree. I give all of these immediately after any library program. I give them in paper. Because that is a higher, they're anonymous. They're all typically HSIRB approved assessments. I usually have I have, every year I write an HSIRB to approve one assessment plan for all the programs that I use, and then that way I can use the data. And then paper format, they're all anonymous. There's just, I do like a quarter sheet or a half sheet depending, and then they just scribble on it and then just hand it back, and return rates are much higher in paper. So that's kind of why I do that. So yeah, based on all the different tools that I looked at, that is how I came up to, that's how I came to this plan. I'm gonna jump back. I want to jump back to the this screen right here because I want to look at Waldo Fest really quickly. Waldo Fest, this is, and I want to talk specifically about assessment. This is very important here for this, our purposes today. So Waldo Fest is a large scale university event where people come in and partners come in and table at the library, and it's held in the spring semester. It's kind of like a kickoff to the spring semester. I've done this event twice. It is enormously popular. And it really has, I need to scale back now because it's getting, actually it's going to be too big if I continue on this trajectory. So I have partners from student services, from academic success, from student success services, from RSOs to academic departments to writing, writing help, tutoring services, therapy dogs, crafting, games. I mean, this is like a big party. And so the frames were recognize the library as space where students can connect, right? And then develop a strong connection to campus community and recognize the library as a support to grow their potential. So, whoops, sorry about that. I did not mean to do that. So in this outcomes column, I want you to look at, so what I wanted to measure for success was not only did this program build their belonging, confidence, and connectedness, and yes, it did, the data shows that it did very strongly, but also what is that success piece, right? I had this program and I wanted people to connect with counseling services, financial aid, student employment office. So the way I measured it was by tracking how many follow-up appointments were made at each table. So I gave each table, each partner a hash mark where they would say, okay, we had this many visits and we made this many follow-up appointments. And I was able to look at that data. So that is very valuable, meaningful data. So not only is it belonging, confidence, connectedness, but what is that tangible piece that we can share back with our partners? So here we had 2,300 table visits. We had 239 follow-up appointments made from that. I had 67 formal paper responses as students were exiting, and that's the part that measured the flourishing aspect. So I just wanted to share that little piece of information. So as you think about assessing these programs, what is important to you, and what resonates with your university strategic plan, your strategic plan, your programming goals and outcomes. So with that, I want to jump into the obvious next question. What do you think you want to measure? And then how do you define success? So I get a little bit of pushback from people saying, well, is it just numbers? So if I say that the therapy dogs came and 70 people interacted with the therapy dogs in 1 hour, that's awesome. That is definitely demonstrating that there is a connection, that we're tapping into some very human needs for students, right? Like we're tapping into their student identity and treating them as that whole student. But how do we also measure success? So in that instance, the therapy dogs, we are actually now a training site for the therapy dog program on campus. So not only are we helping students, but we're also helping this academic program because they know that we're a great partner. So but that stemmed out of just calling, emailing them and be like, can we have some therapy dogs? Like, what do we do? So it's different things like that is how do you measure that success? So if you, this is a trickier one, so I'm not gonna deny that. And, but you maybe we'll jump into the Padlet to see if anyone has any ideas that they're generating. But this is, and the one with Waldo Fest, it was our data librarian who said, how are you measuring success? I was like, what do you mean? She said, I was like, oh, okay. So I need to think about this in a more tangible way. So I'm gonna jump into the Padlet and see if we have anything. So, oh, we have a few. Oh, no, we don't have a few. Okay. So ALA survey, CCSS, I don't know what that is. Is that bad that I said that? I don't know what CCSC means. So this is the tricky part, I think. When we think about engagement, that full cycle, that full programming cycle, we have to think about, okay, conception, implementation, assessment, and then we need to bring that assessment piece back to renew and reinvent or tweak the program for success, but then also share out to the right people. So that's, I think, the trickiest part. I'm sure that answer is in there. So we'll leave that there. And again, it may be that you can go back to the assessment measurement tools and poke around in all of them. Maybe there's something there that triggers an idea of what it is that you want to measure. Another great example of measuring these programs is when I was doing one of these collaging events for a de-stress event. A student was actually finger painting. I did finger painting with Bob Ross. So I had Bob Ross up and I got a cardboard cutout of him and they were just painting. And she said, oh my God, I gotta get off. I gotta go take my final. I said, okay, well, we'll see you in a few. Well, she didn't leave. She just grabbed her computer, opened it up, took her final, closed it, and then continued back to painting. So I don't know how to articulate that, but to me, that was such a fantastic moment that a student felt so comfortable and empowered that she was able to claim that space as her own. So yeah, that's my little focus group for exit. Yeah, right. So you're right. That's the other question is, how are you going to do this? Are you going to do a survey? Are you going to do focus groups or exit comments? Or maybe even you just have like sticky notes like we do on the whiteboard, right? And is it informal? Is it formal? Yeah. So many things to think about here. So I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint. Oh, right. How do you use this space? Yeah, that's a great one. Repeat visits. Yep. So many. Okay, so I'm going to give you another case study. So bringing it all together. So before we go into this action plan that I've created for you to take with you to think about later or now, depend whatever you want, I want to give you a case study on Flourishing. So I have all these standalone programs, but I really wanted to assess the one question. So I have a first year experience and first year writing, so FYE and FYW. First year experience happens the first month of the semester, and then first year writing happens in the month of, so that's September, so first year writing happens in November. And we specifically scaffolded these two very large multi-section programs. So we're talking about 2,000 students total in both classes combined. So about 1,000 each. So I wanted to know if students who attended first year experience in that scavenger hunt program actually felt better and more confident when they went into their first year writing information literacy seminar. So that one session, rather not workshop in the libraries. So that meant I had to track all the students, and I had about 400 students who attended both FYE and first year experience and first year writing. And I just basically asked them, here it is. Here are the questions. Because of the amazing library race, which is the scavenger hunt in FYE, I felt more confident about using the libraries. So they're answering this after they've had both sessions. Wait, do I have the right data up here? In the library on campus. I do. Yes, okay. And then, sorry about that. And then being a student at Western. And then I have more connected to people and resources in the libraries on campus. Like I belong in the library and on campus. And this is that shift I was talking about earlier. So they felt like they really belonged in the library, but there's a slight decrease on campus. And there is actually a pattern that goes over all 3 data points. So they felt confident about the libraries, but not as much as being confident about being a student. They feel like connected in the libraries, but not as much, but more than being connected on campus as a whole. So here's my next set of questions that I modified slightly from those 3 basic questions. So here I have the Amazing Library Race was intentionally scheduled to take place before all research skills workshops. So I had to clarify the difference because they got confused in my beta test. So I had to rethink how I asked the question. And so the question is, participating in the library race before participating in library research skills workshop made me feel able to connect more deeply with resources, able to fully participate in the library session, and more confident about more confident about learning new research skills. So here I really wanted to see if that social emotional component of first year experience, which is that scavenger hunt, made them feel better and more confident about being a student and more ready to engage with information in the first year writing program, which is truly a research workshop where they go through and talk about a bias writing assignment, and they go through the databases or their topic, a typical first year writing workshop content. So, and I was just really excited by all of this information, this data. So the purple is positive, right? So these are the Likert scale. So so this is strongly disagree. So this dark green, strongly disagree, agree. So it's on a 5-point scale, but there are halfway points. So this was done with Qualtrics, and it wouldn't let me modify the data. So I apologize, that's a little confusing. But overall, the purple skews are very positive. So that was exciting information for me. So what I was hoping to share with you all today is to take a stab at, if you're ready and willing. Maybe you might not be just yet because this is a lot of information, but I have a Google document that you can download or copy to your own Google Drive, and I've asked some very basic questions to bring all these ideas together for you. And the idea is that you would walk away with a plan in place for engagement. So I'll end the show, and that's my last slide on my show. So here's the assessment piece. So really, you want to identify the engagement activity, like what it is that you're thinking about doing, and then think about which frame or frames are you targeting. So here's a link back to the Flourishing guide. I might bring this down here so I don't have to look up so much. There we go, that's better. Which knowledge practices and dispositions are you targeting? Again, this is gonna help with developing. These are all guided questions to help you really think about what it is that you're developing, what the outcomes are, and what it is that you want to measure. So you could identify learning outcomes, And then for measuring success, how do you define success and what will you measure? I guess I could put and how. There you go. And then the measurement tool. Oh, there we go. Never mind. I forgot I had that there. So how will you assess these outcomes and what questions will you ask? And again, you can refer back to all of those other measurement tools that are available to us in the LibGuide that I developed. So that is a ton of information. It's 9:46, and I know yesterday we did not have any time left over to field any questions, and I apologize for that. So I'll just open up the floor to questions. I saw that there might be some on chat. And thank you again so much. This has been a pleasure working with all of you. And I'll put my email address. I guess it's in my LibGuide. I'm sure you're all librarians and you can find it. Is anyone else like me where they're like, well, here, I'll send you the information. And in your mind, you're just thinking, it's cool, man. I got it. I'm gonna check the chat to make sure I haven't missed anything, and please feel free to unmute. I can stop sharing my screen. Sorry about that. There we go. Or feel free to raise your hand. I can see everyone now. So emphasizing the human connection, human resources, yeah. And I kind of touched on that yesterday. It seems like and of course we're libraries, I get it, but we're so hyper-focused on information, but there's another player in that infosphere. There's another active element, and that's us. So we need to really think about that. Oh, yeah, right. Right, some of those students who may have come to the university with not as many advantages as other students, correct. I'm really interested in developing programming for neurodiversity. I noticed that my study communities were attended by several people on the spectrum. I have 2 children on the spectrum, so I was like, oh, excellent. And so I'm really interested in thinking about how I can partner with the Office of Student Disability Services and working with neurodivergent populations, I say. Yes, right? Easy to see, hard to measure, but I think that's what's going to start elevating this whole process is, I mean, with information literacy, people are like, yeah, we get it, but it's like, no. It's far more complicated than you think. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a fun idea. I love anything visual. Oh, Esther, I see your comment about the project outcome and confidence. That's interesting. That confidence was the lowest point. That's interesting. And so the question is why? I'll have to say that question 6 on project outcome, which asks, is there anything else we can do to help you as a student or something I feel like I should have it memorized, but I do not. That is where I get probably some of the most amazing data from students. The feedback from students, if you give them a question, it's like, is there anything else we can do for you? They are so honest, they are so generous, they are so willing to share their data that I always go directly to that question when I'm looking at data because it's a treasure trove. I'm just going way up on the chat. I missed quite a bit. Sorry. Someone was talking about wording is helpful for marketing, right? It's like, yeah, how can we use this in our annual reporting and how can we market it out to, I don't know, administration or university administration and get more money? So again, all of the information on the LibGuide is open and it's public. That URL will be there. I'll put the slides up from today up there. I'll make sure everything's anonymized. I might put some of the Padlet images of the Padlet responses there if you want to share that information with anybody after. And I did similar presentations at LOEX and at the Michigan Academic Library Association this spring. I have those presentations and information up as well. So if you're curious, you can see what other people said about Flourishing. Your presentation was far more elaborate with far more input and feedback, so. Well, thank you
Wonderful.
again. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad I met you, and I'm so glad I could bring you here for this. I'm going to take a little bit of credit on this. I networked. And
You engaged.
I did. I'm very proud of myself, but I'm also like so excited because this is something that I think hits a lot of us where we live. So I'm so glad you come here and do this.
Yeah,
Thank you. It is so much appreciated. I think we're gonna take a break now. Is that correct? Yes, Matt's nodding, so I'm gonna go with Matt. We're gonna take a break. Thank you so much, Kate, and get back in touch with Kate if you have any questions. And then we will start our next session in about 8 minutes. All right. Thank you all. See you.
Have you already made Jennifer a co-host, Julie? Or if not, can you make me the host again so I can do that? And can we stop the recording? Okay.
And I'm here.
Hi, Jennifer.
Stop the
Hi, Amanda. How are
recording.
you?
I'm all right. How about you?